I always knew I wanted to be artist first and using technological tools. I think I've been in the right place at the right time many times, which has been really amazing, and exposed to certain people, which are really just kind of mind blowing. But if I had to boil it down to one single moment, it would probably be.
This is the AM show with arts music lawyer, where ambition and motivation meet persistence and drive, where your wildest dreams come true and even the greatest possibilities become realities. Listen to people just like you who stay authentic to who they are and master the art of their craft. Are you sharing the art of you? The art of you is music to my ears. Stay focused, stay on track. Create a new lifestyle with ambition and motivation. The AM Show. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the AM Show. Today I am very excited to have Leo Villareal. I'm very excited because he might be bringing a light installation to El Paso, Texas. And so I hope those of you in El Paso are especially tuned in to hear about his background and his trajectory in the artistic world. So welcome, Leo. Thank you for doing this interview.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So tell everyone a little bit about your background, where you started, and how you got into art.
Well, I grew up in El Paso and Juarez, and I was born in Albuquerque. And, I was always interested in art. And when I was 16, I left to go to school in Rhode Island, and I ended up having access to a lot of art classes and started going to museums in Boston and New York and really loving art. I started with some set design early on. And when I was in college, I took my first installation sculpture class. And that's when I realized I really wanted to be an artist. And I didn't want to be doing theater. I could do all that in another way. So it was a long process. I mean, this was the 80s and I graduated in 1990, and that's the year that Photoshop came out. So I was interested in digital tools. I'd had an Apple II Plus computer when I was young. And so the idea of being able to edit photographs with a computer was really fascinating to me. And there was a buzz about virtual reality the first time around, which got my attention as well. So I ended up finding a graduate program at NYU called the Interactive Telecommunications Program. And I did a summer program there, fell in love with it, and ended up doing a 2-year graduate program in technology. And the idea was to void the warranty, break things open, figure out how they work. And at that point, it was very hard to get access to a lot of this technology. Some of the computers you needed to make virtual reality cost several $1 million, and you had to be in an academic environment to get access. Very different than it is today. But I always knew I wanted to be artist first and using technological tools. So I ended up going out to California, to Palo Alto, to do a summer internship in 1994. And it was supposed to be 3 months, and I ended up staying on for 3 years. I became a member of the research staff. So anyway, it was a long, convoluted path, and eventually came back to New York in 1998, established my studio. So yeah, it's been a crazy, unbelievable adventure is all I can say.
After reading so many books about the story behind an entrepreneur and listening to stories like yours also, I have realized that there's usually one pivotal moment in somebody's journey that kind of changes the rest of what the future will look like. What do you think that moment was for you? Was it somebody said yes after this many no's? Were you pushing? Were you trying to knock a specific door down? What was that one thing?
Well, I think I've been in the right place at the right time many times, which has been really amazing, and exposed to certain people, which are really just kind of mind blowing. But if I had to boil it down to one single moment, it would probably be when I created my first light sculpture at Burning Man. I started going there in 94 in the Black Rock Desert of Nevada. And first experience there was getting profoundly lost. I couldn't find my way back to my tent. And I thought, wow, this is super interesting to be 20 something years old and to be this lost. Found it fascinating, and I learned a lot from it. But by my third year out there, I said, I'm going to do something about it. And I created a beacon for myself with 16 strobe lights, and I mounted it on top of my mobile home as a navigational aid. But it was this combination of software and light and space that all crystallized at that one moment. And suddenly I was like, whoa, I'd been working on all this virtual reality stuff that required more and more powerful computers and all these sorts of things. And the epiphany I had was that I didn't need all that stuff, and I could step out of this kind of arms race, and I could do a lot with a small amount of information. So that was just the very exciting moment for me. And I think that's kind of what I've continued to do throughout, for the last almost 30 years of work with light and software. But it was interesting to me how that all just that little moment of this particular circumstance, like I'm in the desert, I got lost, and then I had to do something about it. And then that led to this door opens, and suddenly you're like, wow. And that leads you on a whole other trajectory. And it's amazing how far that can take you.
So do you feel that people really started to take notice of what you were doing after that specific project?
No. I mean, my neighbors at Burning Man loved it because they could get home to their tents and RVs at night as well. There was an appreciation of it. And I love the communal aspect of that. So it was more something internal for me. And I came back to my studio in, 1998 in New York and started working. I was in some group shows and then eventually had my first solo show in 2002 and eventually did my first piece of public art, which was on the side of PS1 in Long Island City. And what was interesting to me is that I love galleries and museums, but I also like getting art out into the world and for the public to see and everyone to engage with. And I realized a lot of people don't go to galleries and museums. And I realized the impact that my artwork had on the community, like the taxi drivers or the gas station attendant or people but they're very attentive. They're seeing these things and were aware of what I was doing. And that was very exciting to me. So that started me off on another path of creating public art and things that really activate cities and are available to everyone.
So which project do you think really put you on the map to where other people were taking notice and maybe inviting you to their talk or to their table?
Hard work. I mean, being an artist, it's not for the faint of heart. You really have to be comfortable with putting yourself out there. And, in the early days, I was just trying to figure it out and meet people and show my work and find someone who wanted to give me an opportunity. And it was really incremental. It went from one thing to the next. And it's this thing that you keep building on and learning more and gaining more experience. In 2003, I did a piece I was talking about at PS1 was that year. And then 10 years later, in 2013, I did the Bay Lights in San Francisco, the Bay Bridge. So that's a 1.8 mile long installation. And that was by far the biggest piece I'd ever done. I was asked to think about the Bay Bridge as a canvas and what would I do? I thought, wow, this will probably never happen, but it's exciting to think about. So I spent a few months working on a simulation in the computer of what it could look like and then showing it to the people at Caltrans that own and operate all the bridges and roads in California. And they got very excited about it. Normally, they're not easy to get excited about art and public art and all these things, but it was that connection of the activation and be able to visualize what it could look like and showing it to them and getting them on board. And they said, well, maybe we could get a permit to do this. And it started us on this crazy 2.5-year process of forming a nonprofit, figuring out all the complexities of it, raising $8 million, installing it. We made a documentary about it called Impossible Light because it was such a kind of a crazy thing. And if any of us had known how hard it would be, we didn't know. And that's it's very much of a California or maybe an entrepreneurial thing. You just don't know how hard it's going to, and you just get into it and you start finding allies. And it was, again, just an amazing group of people that enable that to happen, from people who had the initial idea to people who are in power and with the infrastructure to various patrons to all these, brilliant technology people and engineers. And I mean, it was just a team of hundreds that helped to realize that work. And when it came up, it was amazing. The scale of it was so impactful. But I really felt like it was something that we did together. It was this communal effort and everyone participated. And it's my artwork, but I really wanted everyone to feel a sense that it was theirs too. It's for everyone and a gift to the city. So that was really powerful to be able to do that. And then suddenly the work started to resonate. And, I was, had a call, will you come and be on CNN? And I was like, whoa, that's really crazy. And it was in the, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and all over the place. And it got a huge amount of press, which I thought, wow, for a piece of public art or a light sculpture, that's amazing that people care that much about it. But something about it really resonated. So that was certainly another big leap in terms of what I was doing, and working on that scale was very different.
Stay tuned for part 2 and more with Leo Villareal.